So we continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 4, Text 33. We have been hearing, does anyone remember what we heard yesterday?
The Goswami, we were talking about the Sutta Goswami and about his life, that how he was doing everything and how his life has been going.
Sutta Goswami. Well, we were hearing, specifically we were hearing that Vyāsadeva, that he compiled all the Vedas, he divided the Vedas, he entrusted the Vedas to different personalities. He also compiled the Mahabharata, he wrote the Mahabharata. He did so much work for welfare of humanity, but still he was feeling dissatisfied. So he was sitting in Badrikashram and he was feeling dissatisfied at the bank of river Saraswati. And he was thinking, maybe I'm dissatisfied because I didn't give a clear direction to humanity that what they should do, that they should engage in bhakti, devotional service, because people can get lost in the flowery language of the Vedas or in the stories of the Mahabharata. People may not understand what is the real essence, and that is devotional service. So he was thinking like that. And then Narad Muni is going to come now. Tam abhigyaya sahasam.
Abhigyaya
sahasa.
Pratyuthaya gatam munihi.
Pratyuthaya
gatam munihi.
Pujayam asa vidhivan.
Pujayam asha vidhivan.
Naradam sura pujitam.
Naradam sura
pujitam. Translation. At the auspicious arrival of Sri Nārada, Sri Vyāsadeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator. Purport. Vidhi means Brahma, the first created living being. He is the original student as well as professor of the Vedas. He learned it from Sri Krishna and taught Nārada first. So Nārada is the second Acharya in the line of the spiritual disciplic succession. He is the representative of Brahma, and therefore he is respected exactly like Brahma, the father of all vidhis, regulations. Similarly, all other successive disciples in the chain are also equally respected as representatives of the original spiritual master. Thus ends Bhaktivedanta purport of the first canto, fourth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, titled The Appearance of Sri Nārada.
Sorry, your voice is breaking, Neha. Sorry about it.
I mean, please somebody else read. I can't help it.
Yeah, I understand. Maybe somebody else can read, but the next one. So here Narad Muni has come when Vyasadeva was feeling this kind of dissatisfaction. Narad Muni has come. So we are understanding Brahma is the first created being. So Krishna gave the Vedas to Brahmaji. Tene Brahma Hridaya ya Adi Kavaya. First, Krishna gave the Vedas to Brahmaji in his heart. Krishna spoke the Vedic knowledge to Brahma. And then Brahma, in turn, gave it to Narad. So this is how the disciplic succession happens. Krishna is the original speaker, then it comes in the disciplic succession. So Krishna spoke to Narad. Krishna spoke to Brahma, Brahma spoke to Narad. Now, Narad will speak to Vyasadeva. So, chapter 5, Narad's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. Sutta Vacha.
Suta Uvacha.
Atatam Sukham Asina.
Atatam Sukham Ashina.
Upashinam Brahatravaha.
Upasinam Brahachravaha.
Devarshi Praha Viprashim.
Devarshi Praha Viprashim.
Vinapanihi Samayan Iva.
Vinaya Pani Smayan.
Neetu, you'll read?
Yeah, okay. I can read, yeah. Translation. Suta Goswami said that the sage amongst the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi amongst the Brahmanas, Vyāsadeva. Sorry. Purport. Narada was smiling because he well knew the great sage Vedavyasa and the cause of his disappointment. As he will explain gradually, Vyasadeva's disappointment was due to insufficiency in presenting the science of devotional service. Narada knew the defect, and it was confirmed by the position of Vyasa.
So Vyas, he's written so much literature, Vedic knowledge, Upanishads, Puranas, Mahabharata. But he's feeling dissatisfied because he's not very clearly glorified devotional service. And Narad Muni understood the reason why Vyasadeva is feeling dissatisfied. Narada Vacha.
Narada Uvacha.
Parasharya Mahabhaga.
Parasharya Mahabhaga.
Bhavata Kachit Atmana.
Bhavata Kachit Atmana.
Parityushyati Sharira.
Paritushyati Sarira.
Atma Manasa Eva Va.
Atma Manasa Eva. Translation. Addressing Vyasadeva, the son of Parasara, Narada inquired, "Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization?" Purport. This was a hint by Narada to Vyasadeva regarding the cause of his despondency. Vyasadeva, as a descendant of Parasara, a greatly powerful sage, had the privilege of having a great parentage, which should not have given Vyasadeva cause for despondency. Being a great son of a great father, he should not have identified the self with the body or the mind. Ordinary men with a poor fund of knowledge can identify the body as self or the mind as self, but Vyasadeva should not have done so. One cannot be cheerful by nature. One is actually seated in self-realization, which is transcendental to the material body and mind.
So Vyasadeva, he is the son of Parasar Muni. Yeah, that's why Narad Muni is calling him as son of Parasar, or descendant of Parasar, that you're born to such a great father. So you shouldn't be feeling despondent. And he said that you shouldn't have been identified yourself with body or the mind. Atma Bhagavad Gita, we understand. Some people identify the self as the body, or the self as the mind, or the self as the soul. So the self actually is the soul, but we may identify as the body, mind, because we are in the conditioned position. But Vyāsadeva, here Narad Muni is saying, you're a great personality. Why you are identifying yourself with body or mind? Jigyasitam susampanam.
Jignasitam Susampanam.
Apite mahad adbhutam.
Apite Mahat Adbhutam.
Kritavan bharatam yastvam.
Kritavan Bharatam Yastvam.
Sarvartha paribrimhitam.
Sarvata Bharatam Yastvam. Translation. Your inquiries were full and your studies were also well fulfilled. And there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. Purport. The despondency of Vyasadeva was certainly not due to his lack of sufficient knowledge, because as a student he had fully inquired about the Vedic literatures, as a result of which the Mahabharata is compiled with full explanation of the Vedas.
So Narad Muni is saying, yeah, of course you're fully knowledgeable, you know. He's fully knowledge, he understands the Vedic literature, and he's also given Mahabharata to explain the Vedic. Vedic knowledge is difficult for people to understand. So he gave Mahabharata for one to understand what he's saying. Jigyasitam adhitam cha.
Jijñāsitam adidam cha
Brahma yatta sanatanam.
Brahma yattat sanatanam
Tathapi shochasi atmanam.
tat tathapi sokashi atmanam
Kritartha eva prabho.
akratha eva prabho.
Neetu, you'll read?
Translation. Yeah. Translation. You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you be despondent in spite of all this, thinking that you are undone, my dear Prabhu? Purport. The Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra, compiled by Sri Vyasadeva, is a full deliberation of the impersonal absolute feature, and it is accepted as the most exalted philosophical exposition in the world. It covers the subject of eternity, and the methods are scholarly. So there cannot be any doubt about the transcendental scholarship of Vyasadeva. So why should he lament?
So first Narad Muni is saying, we heard that why are you identifying yourself with the body and mind? Then he's saying, certainly you have full mastery of the Vedas because you have also explained the Vedas in the Mahabharata. So it's not that you don't know about the Vedas. Then he's saying, and you have scholarly also, you have presented the Vedanta Sutra, which is speaking about the Brahman, the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. So your scholarship is also very good. So all these things Narad Muni is saying, and he's keeping asking, so why are you still feeling dissatisfied? You've done so much service. Why are you feeling dissatisfied? Narad Muni knows, but he wants Vyasadeva to speak, you know. So Vyasa Vacha
Vyasa Uvacha
Asti Asti eva me sarvam idam tvayoktam.
Astiye iva me sarvam idam tyayuktam
Tathapi natma परितुष्यते मे
तथापि नात्मा परितुष्यते मे
तन्मूलम् अव्यक्तम् अगाधबोधम्
तन्मूलम् अव्यक्तमगाधबोधम्
पृच्छामहे त्वात्मभवात्मभूतम्
पृच्छामहे त्वत्मभावात्मभूतम्. Translation. Sri Vyasadeva said, "All you have said about me is perfectly correct. Despite all this, I am not pacified. I therefore question you about the root cause of my dissatisfaction, for you are a man of unlimited knowledge due to your being the offspring of one Brahma who is self-born without mundane father and mother." Purport. In the material world, everyone is engrossed with the idea of identifying the body or the mind with the self. As such, all the knowledge disseminated in the material world is related either with the body or with the mind, and that is the root cause of all despondencies. This is not always detected, even though one may be the greatest erudite scholar in materialistic knowledge. It is good, therefore, to approach a personality like Narada to solve the root cause of all despondencies. Why Narada should be approached is explained below.
So now Vyasadeva is saying, that I'm such a great scholar. I've I've compiled the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra, the Mahabharata, but yet I don't know why I'm feeling dissatisfied. I don't know. I've done so much work for humanity, and still I'm feeling, something is missing. I don't feel completely satisfied. So, Narad Muni, Vyasadeva is calling Narad Muni son of Brahma, who's self-born. Because Brahma, he does not have a material mother or father. Brahmaji is directly born from the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So sometimes Brahma is also called Aja, because he does not have material mother or father. So here, Prabhupada in the purport is pointing out that we all feel dissatisfied because we may have knowledge of the body, we may have knowledge of the mind, but that does not satisfy the soul, the self, because we are all spirit souls. So sure, of course, materialistic knowledge is needed, as we were reading yesterday in Sri Upanishad, that we should understand material knowledge as well as knowledge of the supreme truth, of the supreme personality of Godhead. So here now, Nārada is going to say, that's what's wrong. Savai Bhavan Veda Samasta Guhyam
Savai Bhavan Ved Samashta Guhyam
Upasito Yat Purushaha Puranaha
Upashitu Yat Purusha Purana
Paravaresho Manaseva Vishwam
Paravareshu Manasaiva Vishwam
Srajati Avati Atiguner Asangaha.
Srijati
Javate Ati
Gune
Guner Sanga. Translation. My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you because you worship the Creator and Destroyer of the material world and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Purport. A person who is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord is the emblem of all knowledge. Such a devotee of the Lord in full perfection of devotional service is also perfect by the qualification of the personality of Godhead. As such, the eightfold perfections of mystic power, Ashtasiddhi, constitute very little of his godly opulence. A devotee like Narada can act wonderfully by his spiritual perfection, which every individual is trying to attain. Srila Narada is a 10% perfect living being, although not equal to the personality of Godhead.
So Narad Muni, because he's pure devotee of Krishna, pure devotee of God. So Vyasadeva is saying here, because you're worshipping God, you're a pure devotee, and that's why you know everything. Because a pure devotee, he's understood the Vedas. That's the reason he's engaging in devotional service, pure devotional service. He's understood his position. He's realized it. So that's why here Prabhupada is saying he's a 10% perfect living being. He's completely liberated. He understands the Supreme Lord. He's not God, but he is a pure devotee of God. So as God is transcendental, the pure devotee is also transcendental. Tvam paryatan arka iva trilokyam
Tvam
Tvam
paryatan ark iva trilokim
Lokim
antashcharavayurivatma sakshi.
Antashcharu
Antacharatsvayu iva
Shivatma
sakshi.
Sakshi
Paravare brahmani dharmato vritehe
Paravare Brahmani
Dharmato
Dharmato
vrite.
Vritehe
sanatasya menu nyunam alam vichekshva.
Sanatanasya
Sanatasya
me
me
nyunam alam vichakshvaha.
Nyunmalavishvasya. Translation. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all pervasive supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. Purpose. Transcendental realization, pious activities, worshipping the deities, charity, mercifulness, non-violence, and studying the scriptures under strict disciplinary regulations are always helpful.
So, of course, here Vyasadeva is telling to Narad Muni. Narad Muni can go anywhere at his will, no? He's the transcendental spaceman. And Vyasadeva is saying, because you are pure devotee of the Lord, you understand also past, present, and future. You understand what is in the heart of someone. So therefore, you please tell me, why am I feeling dissatisfied? I'm completely on the transcendental platform. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing, all the pious activities, all the worshipping, everything, but I'm still feeling dissatisfied. So what's the reason? Shri Narada Vacha
Sri
Sri Narada
Narada
Uvacha
Bhavatano Prayam
Bhavata Anudita
Bhavatanodita
Prayam
Prayam
Yasho Bhagavato Malam
Yasho
Yasho
Bhagavato
Bhagavato
Amalam
Malam
Yene Vaso Na Tushyeta
Yena eva
Yena
aso
Vashayo
Natushyeta
Natushyate Shita
Manyeta Darshanam Khilam.
Manye
Manye
Taddarshanam
Tat
Khilam.
Darshanam Kilam. Translation. Sri Narada said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless." Purport. The eternal relation of an individual soul with the Supreme Soul, personality of Godhead, is constitutionally one of being the eternal servitor of the eternal Master. The Lord has expanded himself as the living beings in order to accept loving service from them, and this alone can satisfy both the Lord and the living beings. Such a scholar as Vyasadeva has completed many expansions of the Vedic literature ending with the Vedanta philosophy, but none of them have been written directly glorifying the personality of Godhead. Dry philosophical speculations, even on the transcendental subject of the Absolute, have very little attraction without direct dealing with the glorification of the Lord. The personality of Godhead is the last word in transcendental realization. The Absolute realized as the impersonal Brahman or localized Supersoul, Paramatma, is less productive of transcendental bliss than the Supreme Personal realization of his glories.
Hmm. So here now Narad Muni is saying, because why you're feeling dissatisfied even though you've done so much work. But what have you done in the work? You did not glorify the Supreme Lord. You did not glorify devotional service. So that's why, even though you've wrote the Vedas, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, the Mahabharata, you did not directly, very clearly glorify the Supreme Lord. So here Prabhupada is explaining in the purport the relationship. What's the relationship between individual soul and God? Each of us have a loving relationship with God. Just as a father, he makes children so that he can have a loving relationship with them. So similarly, God is our Supreme Father. Krishna is our Supreme Father. And each of us is meant to be in this loving relationship with him. And when we love someone, we render service to them. We can see here also in the material world. Service, we are serving even everyone. We can see. We serve our parents or siblings or spouse or family or society, community, nation. But when the serving propensity is applied to God, then both are satisfied. God is satisfied and we are satisfied. What satisfaction the God experiences, we experience. Although God, he's Atmaram. It's not that if we don't serve him, he's dissatisfied. No, he's completely blissful in himself. But when he accepts our service, we feel the satisfaction. So Narad Muni, here Srila Prabhupada is saying that Vyāsadeva, he wrote so much literature, but even like in the Vedanta Sutra, he's explaining the subject matter of the impersonal Brahman, but not about the personality of Godhead. God is realized in three features. And the highest, the complete understanding is that God is a person, the Brahman or the Brahmajyoti, it's the effulgence coming from his body, and Paramatma is his expansion by which he is pervading the entire universe, by which he is omnipresent.
The compiler of the Vedanta Darshana is Vyasadeva himself, yet he is troubled, although he is the author. So, what sort of transcendental bliss can be derived by the reader and listeners of the Vedanta, which is not explained directly by Vyasadeva, the author? Herein arises the necessity of explaining Vedanta Sutra in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam by the self-same author.
So Vyasadeva, he wrote the Vedanta Sutra, which is explaining about the impersonal form of the Lord, the Brahman, but he is feeling dissatisfied. He is the author. So he knows what he's writing and he's dissatisfied. So what to speak about the others who are going to read it? So if the author himself, because he's putting forward his work, if he is dissatisfied, so also the readers are going to be dissatisfied. And that's the reason Bhagavatam is spoken, because Bhagavatam is the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra by Srila Vyasadeva himself, the direct glorification of the Supreme Lord. Yatha dharmadayaschartha
Yata dharma dayaschartha
Muni Varyanu Kirtita
Muni Varyanu Kirtitha.
Na tatha Vasudevasya
Na Tatha Vasudevasya
Mahima hi anuvartinaha Varnitaha.
Anuvarnitaha.
Mahima Hi
Anuvarnitaha.
Varnita. Does anyone wants to read?
Can I
Okay.
try?
Okay.
Shilpa,
Yes,
just
yes.
see if I'm
Please.
sounding perfect. I'll just try. If not, then you can continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Read.
Yeah.
Although, great sage, you have very hurriedly described the four principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudev. Am I sounding okay?
It's all right.
Disturbance.
Till now, it's okay.
Okay. The prompt diagnosis of Sri Narad is at once declared. The root cause of the despondency of Vyāsadeva was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in his various editions of the Puranas. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord, Sri Krishna, but not as many as given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These four items are by far inferior to engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. Sri Vasudev, as the authorized scholar, knew very well this difference. And still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagement, namely devotional service to the Lord, he had more or less improperly used his valuable time. And thus, he was despondent. From this, it is clearly indicated that no one can be pleased substantially without being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned.
So Narad Muni is telling him that because you didn't glorify the Lord, you didn't glorify Lord Krishna. Sure, in the various Puranas, he may have here and there put the glories of the Lord, but he's put so much matter dealing with um, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, with, religiosity, doing these rituals, going to the heavenly planets, enjoying in the heavenly planets, getting more opulence, enjoying more with opulence, and then finally coming to moksha. So he's described too much of that, and he's barely described the glories of the Lord. So, the conditioned souls, we are going to get confused that what is actually the goal of life, because there's so much other information and glories of the Lord are not directly mentioned. This is what Narad Muni is saying. And so Narad Muni is telling him, now you know why you have, because you have kind of wasted your valuable time because you did not glorify the Supreme Lord directly. And Krishna is also saying in Bhagavad Gita, Susukham Kartam Avyayam, in chapter 9, that devotional service is joyfully performed. One who engages in devotional service becomes joyful. So Vyasadeva has not clearly mentioned it till now. That's the reason arose the need to write Srimad Bhagavatam.
After liberation, which is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, etc., one is engaged in pure devotional service. This is called the stage of self-realization or the Brahma-bhuta stage. After attainment of this Brahma-bhuta stage, one is satisfied, but satisfaction is the beginning of transcendental bliss. One should progress by attaining neutrality and equality in the relative world. And passing this stage of equanimity, one is fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the instruction of the personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of the Brahma-bhuta stage, as also to increase the degree of transcendental realization, Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that he, Vyasadeva, should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from the gross despondency.
So Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Sochati na Kankshati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. Lord Krishna is saying this in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 54. So Brahma Bhuta means liberation. One has become liberated. He's understood, I'm Brahman, I'm the spirit soul. So then one feels satisfied because the modes are no more troubling. The miseries of the world are no more affecting the soul. But this is just the beginning. Then what we are understanding that one has to come to the point of sama sarveshu bhuteshu, neutrality, equality. One has to become equal. One has to give up this lamentation and hankering. Na sochati, na kankshati. So no lamentation, no hankering. So it's like a progression. It's like progressive. Then after that, one comes to understand, oh, I'm eternal. Let me engage in pure devotional service to the Lord. One understands his position completely. So he engages in pure devotional service. So now Narad Muni is saying, now you come just directly glorify devotional service, repeatedly speak about devotional service, tell people about devotional service. Anisha, you're not able to hear me, or who you're not able to hear? Hare Krishna. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can
hear you.
Okay, so
Maybe
I don't know,
me.
Anisha.
Maybe she wasn't able to hear me. Maybe.
I'm not sure because she put on the chat. Anisha, you're not able to hear me, or Neha reading?
No, not at all.
Who? Me? Who you're not able to hear? Let me write to her.
Everyone.
Oh, everyone. Oh, so there might be something wrong with your system. Maybe can you please check? Because others are saying they are able to hear.
Okay. I will just check.
Yeah,
Yes.
can you please check?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So here Narad Muni is saying to Vyasadeva, you just repeatedly you glorify devotional service. You speak about devotional service. And this is going to satisfy your heart. Na yat vachaschitrapadam harer yasho.
Na yad vachaschitrapadam hare yasho.
Okay. Jagat pavitram pragranita karkichit.
Jagat pavitram praganit kanhichit.
Tadvaya samtirthamashanti manasa.
Tatvayasam tirtham ushanti manasa.
Na yatra hamsa niramanti ushikshaya.
Na yatra hamsa nirmanti ushikshaya. Translation. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. Purport. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The fruitive workers or the passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all perfect saintly persons are compared to the swan. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive worker takes pleasure in wine and women and places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for the conferences and meetings. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of the natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of water, nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers in variegated colors of natural beauty. That is the difference between the two classes of birds.
Here, Narad Muni is saying that the word. Anyway, first, Prabhupada is mentioning also about the crows and the swans. So, crows and swans both are birds, but they have different nature. Swans you'll find in beautiful lakes where there's lotuses, in a beautiful place, and crows will be found where there is garbage. That's where the crow, because they're different. Similarly, there are different kinds of human beings. So some human beings are interested in gross sense pleasure, but the swan-like devotees don't take pleasure there. So this is what we are trying to understand.
Nature has influenced different species of life with different mentalities, and it is not possible to bring them up into the same rank and file.
It's just different nature, Different species have different natures.
Similarly, there are different kinds of literature for different types of men of different mentality. Mostly, the market literatures which attract men of the prose categories are literatures containing refused remnants of the sensuous topics. They are generally known as mundane talks in relation with the gross body and subtle mind. They are full of subject matters described in decorative language, full of mundane similes and metaphorical arrangements. Yet, with all that, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry and prose on any subject matter is considered decoration of the dead body. Spiritually advanced men who are compared to the swans do not take pleasure in such dead literature, which are source of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. These literatures in the modes of passion and ignorance are distributed under different labels, but they can hardly help the spiritual urge of the human being. And thus, the swan-like spiritually advanced men have nothing to do with them. Such spiritually advanced men are called manasa, also because they always keep up the standard of transcendental voluntary.
Voluntary
Service to the Lord,
service.
voluntary service to the Lord on the spiritual plane. This completely forbids fruitive activities for gross bodily sense satisfaction or subtle speculation of the material egoistic mind.
So Narad Muni is saying, just as there are different types of birds doing different type of activity, there are different type of men, Narad Muni is saying. That some are attracted to the material literature which is also very beautifully, very beautifully put up. A lot of poetry, a lot of similes, very beautiful, but it's all dealing with the material world. But the Paramhamsas, the devotees, they are not attracted to such literature because they understand that this is relating to the body and mind, so they don't find the pleasure there. Whereas they are always finding pleasure in hearing the glories of the Lord. The swan-like devotees, the spiritually advanced, they find pleasure in glorifying the Supreme Lord.
social, literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Swami Sridhar, this is the pleasure of the prostitute hunters.
So the great acharyas are saying that one who's completely absorbed in material nature, then they take pleasure in reading mundane literature, literature of the mundane, relating to material world.
But literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramhamsas who have grasped the essence of the human activities.
But the devotees of the Lord, they want to hear, they take pleasure in the Bhakti Shastras. The Bhakti Shastras which are describing the glories of the Lord. So they are called Paramhams. Paramhams because they understand the essence of human life. They are able to, a swan with a mixture of milk and water can drink out only the milk, leaving the water behind. So the devotees are called swan-like because they are not attracted to the material literature, but to the literature which is glorifying the Supreme Lord. So time is already
Krishna.
almost up.
So just
Yes.
one question. So just one.
Yes.
So that means that Narad Muni was telling Vyasadeva because he was not finding the contentment and happiness. So then he was giving him the examples that if if what you have written doesn't have devotional service, then it is not appropriate. It won't give satisfaction to your heart because it is derived of devotional service, right?
It's not if, because Vyasadeva has already written all the literature, but he is not feeling the satisfaction. So Narad Muni is telling him, because you did not glorify the Supreme Lord directly, you've not enough given the glories of the Supreme Lord, you've not glorified devotional service, you've not directly told people, engage in devotional service. So that's the reason you're feeling dissatisfied. Because Vyasadeva has written so much about Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha in all his literatures, but he did not give, like, the path is just engage in devotional service. So one may get confused, in this, like, what is actually the goal of life? Is it Dharma? Is it Artha? Is it Kama? Is it Moksha? What is it? But actually the goal of life, the Pancha Purushartha, is devotional service, Prema Pamartho Mahan, love for God, to revive the love for God. So because Vedvyas did not directly say this in any of the literature till now, what he has written, that's why he's feeling dissatisfied. This is what Narad Muni is telling him. Is that okay? Because all the Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, they're dealing with the body and mind, but not with the self, the soul. And it's only devotional service that can actually give happiness to the soul. So Vyasadeva has not described the glories of devotional service enough. So that's why he's not feeling satisfied. Is that okay? Oh,
Yeah.
Neha got,
Yes.
okay, I think she got disconnected also. Okay, so, all right then. So we'll stop here for today. Shla Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.